Welcome back to our video series. Today we're going to do a little bit of an introduction to our newest version of CAD that we are using at Central Dauphin High School. We are using AutoCAD 2015. Now in previous years we've been using ProjeCAD for most of our CAD experience. We've recently switched back to AutoCAD because AutoCAD is the industry leader, and they've just recently have gone to a free model for education, including students. If you would like to download AutoCAD and use it at home for educational use, go to the class Canvas site and follow the link for Tech Ed software. And I have a link there for you. You'll just need to register. You'll get a 3-year license for it, and you'll be able to do many of this work or many of these projects at home if you would wish to do so. So when you launch AutoCAD 2015, you're going to start out in this basic screen. It's like, wow, okay, where do I get started? Well, you want to start a new drawing and you want to use templates. Now, if we open up the template list, you're probably not going to see this list of templates. These are our own specific Central Dauphin templates that I developed many years ago, and we've been using them ever since. You'll see a list of templates that were provided with the program. No problems if you already have a drawing started. Just open that drawing up and you'll be good to go. You can also start without using a template. You can go no template imperial or no template metric. Well, most of our drawings are in inches, so we are using the imperial. I'm going to start out by using the working drawing template because this is what we are using in class for the gumball machine drawing, and it already has a lot of things set up for us automatically. So I'm going to start with the working drawing template, and as the drawing launches, you'll see a nice big work area here. This is actually a big D-size sheet of paper, 24 inches wide by 36 inches long, cut in half. It actually is set up for 2 pages already. The top page is already set up for, it says tool post assembly. We have one actually already customized in the class canvas that you can use that will already say gumball machine and already set up for us. It'll even have a parts list completed for you, but I'm just using this one for our demonstration purposes. Now, as I've been kind of moving around on the screen, I'm holding down my middle mouse wheel like it's a button. So to maneuver around, you can scroll your mouse wheel to zoom in and out, or you can hold down the middle mouse wheel like it's a button and pan around on the screen. Easy way to go for things. If you do get all the way in or out and you need to clean up your drawing, to zoom out to see everything is a really nice easy keyboard command. You would just hit Z for zoom and enter, and A for all and enter, and it seems like it's not. Okay, let me try that again. We'll hit escape. Let's try that again. Z enter, A enter. There we go. Okay, so now it's zoomed for me. If you notice as I type a command, it shows up down here at the bottom. In AutoCAD we call this our command line. Every time you type something, you will see it displayed down here at the bottom of the screen. Like when I hit the Z and enter command, you'll notice that it says, okay, you're in the zoom menu. Here are all your options. Well, I did A for all. You type what's capitalized here for the option that you want. Since I want to zoom all, I just hit A and enter again, and I zoom all. And that zooms me all the way back out. Okay, so that gives us some basics. Let's talk about some of the basic options down here at the bottom of the screen in the lower right corner. You can turn on a grid. Okay, there would be displaying a grid. Here would be turning the grid off. Now while the grid's on, if I start to draw, I'm not really snapping to the grid even though I see it, because there's a button right beside it called snap mode. And if you notice, there are F keys that are tied to these also, so as you get really good with this, you can start to hit the F keys. Now I would actually snap to the grid points. Now rarely do we really use the grid, so I'm going to keep both snap and grid turned off. The next 2 buttons are called Ortho mode and polar tracking mode. Basically what these 2 options do, Ortho mode locks you into a 90-degree drawing mode, meaning you can only draw horizontal and vertical lines. Polar tracking allows you to draw at some preset angle that you have set up, and I will show these settings to you in a moment. And the only other button that we're really interested in is over here, 2 more buttons over. Here's ISO draft. When we do our isometric drawings, we'll use that. Next one over is called object snapping mode. We typically call that OSNAP, object snap mode. And this is where you turn on and off snapping to certain points in your drawings, like endpoints or midpoints or centers of circles. We'll use this a lot. Now let's talk about setting things. For example, let's say you want to set your grid or snap. Well, here's a little drop down arrow beside those. Let's click that, and here's one called snap setting. And what should happen is I should get a box pop up here in a second. There we go. And right here would be the settings for your snap and your grid. So here's how you can control the spacing of your snap and grid. Right now they're set to 0.125, which is 1/8 of an inch. Later on, we're going to talk about isometric snap. Here would be that setting as well. Basically, when you click on any of these arrows or even right click on a button, it will cancel out. If I right click on one of these buttons, you'll see the option come up. There's the isoplanes. Usually when it's sluggish here today. I'm still getting comfortable with this new program too as well. Usually when you right click, you'll be able to choose the snap setting option. Okay, so here we're back to snap and grid. Remember I mentioned about object snaps before. Here's where you set which object snaps are always running. So you can say that you want to always lock to endpoints, midpoints, centers of objects, intersections. Perpendicular is always a good one as well. So these will let you lock onto specific points. And again, we get into those. Here's my object snap button. I turned it on, and I can. There's my object snap settings. Again, just clicking on the arrow. These are new options for this program, and they're the ones that are always turned on for me. So there are a lot of different ways to get into this stuff. A lot of these other buttons we're just going to kind of ignore them right now. We don't need them for anything. Let's look at our menus at the top and our ribbon bar up here at the top. And this is new for this CAD program. Instead of a ribbon bar, we typically had toolbars across the top and down the sides. Here's our draw menu, all the different things we can draw. Now by default, you're seeing the more common things at the very top, but if I click on this drop down arrow, these are some of the other things that I can draw. Okay, here's your modify menu. These are how we modify things. We move something, we rotate something, we either trim or extend an object. That's how we trim or extend. Copy objects, mirror objects. Whenever you click any of these commands, you will be given a list of other options down here on the command line. Annotation is just a fancy word for saying drawing notes or doing dimensions. Anytime you want to put text or something on the screen, it's an annotation. There's our text command. Okay, layers. We work in layers in here. Right now we're currently in the object layer. Now I have a bunch of predefined layers in here already for this drawing. Normally when you start a new drawing, you just get one layer called layer 0. These layers are already predefined. For example, the center layer is automatically going to draw red center lines. They're dashed lines. Def points is a layer that AutoCAD creates when you start to dimension. Anything in def points will never be printed out. So make sure you're never drawing in def points. Ignore that layer. Def points are basically definition of points when you dimension how long a line is. And if you change the length of that object, the dimension will update. Those points that define that are drawn in the def points layer. Dimensioning layer, which is just basically set up to as a blue continuous line. Hidden lines are green dashed lines to represent hidden objects. Object layer for dark object lines that you would draw for edges of objects, and also a thinner white line that will give you good for text objects. Okay, so we got a couple of things drawn here. Let's draw some things. Let me pick the line command. When I pick the line command, hey, look, it says it down here in the command line, line specify the first point, and I can just kind of draw. Now, all of my lines are automatically being drawn at 90-degree angles because I have Ortho turned on down here. So what I need to do is I want to turn off my Ortho command. Right here it is. Turn off Ortho. Now I could draw at any free angle. Now right now I'm just kind of guessing. I'm not really typing in a length or an angle or anything. So we're going to have to look at coordinate systems. How do we draw stuff precisely? A couple of different ways to do that. Okay, so I'm just going to hit escape to get out of the line command. And let's say I want to get rid of these things. Well, here's an erase command, a little eraser. What I could do is I could select things. I'll pick on that line, and I'll pick that line. I could go up here, hit the erase command and get rid of them. I could also select an object and hit the delete key on my keyboard, and it goes away. So how do you select multiple things in here? Well, when I'm not on an object and I click with my left mouse button, I start making a thing called a window. And if you notice, that window is crossing a couple of lines, but nothing is being selected. That's because when I drag a window from left to right, it's called a window, meaning an object has to be completely in the window to be selected. Okay, and I could hit erase. Now, that would be dragging from right to left. But if I drag, or I'm sorry, from left to right, but if I drag from right to left, it goes green with a dash line, and that's called a crossing window. So, regular window going from left to right, and only objects that are completely in the window are selected. But if I go from right to left, all I have to do is touch something and it's selected. So you can select a lot more stuff that way, but you have to be careful you don't select things you don't want to select. And I can either hit the erase button or just hit the delete key on my keyboard and it all goes away. Let's look at some other commands. So here's a circle command. I pick the circle command and it's asking me, oh, okay, here's your option. Well, that's good. Well, there's a bunch of drop downs here. There's a lot of different ways to draw circles. We're just going to go with center radius by default. So if I pick the center of a circle, and let's say I want a radius of exactly 3 inches, all you have to do is just type 3 on your keyboard, hit enter, and that circle has a radius of 3 inches, a diameter of 6. Okay, so there's one way to do things precisely. And there are a lot of other commands here you can play around with. And really, the best way to learn it is to experiment. Lines and circles are the things you draw the most. Now, we talked about object snaps before, and there are my object snap commands. So right now, object snap is turned on. So what does that mean? If I start drawing a line, all I have to do is get near the edge of the circle and you'll see the center will light up. And it's lighting up because I have this object snap button turned on down here. All I have to do is get close while that green center is lit up and it'll automatically snap to the center of the circle. And I kind of got off it for a minute there. Let's highlight it again, and now I'm exactly in the middle. As I draw lines, triangles mean midpoints, so I'm actually getting the midpoint of the top border there. When it's lit up, bam, click, I'm exactly on the midpoint. And if I come down, there's a perpendicular symbol. That would be an exact 90 degree. And here would be a midpoint over there. Here would be a center or end point. Okay, so you can actually use those things to draw pretty precisely. Let's show you a couple more basics. I'll delete that so I can start over again. Delete. Okay, let's say I did want to draw precisely with things. One, we're going to turn Ortho back on just to make this easy for me. So, find my Ortho command. Right there it is, my Ortho at a 90 degree angle. So when I draw my first line, it's drawn at a perfect 90 degree. Let's say I want this line to go over here exactly 3.5 inches. Well, I have the line started, and while I'm dragging in that direction with Ortho turned on, all I would have to do is type in 3.5 and enter, and it just made that line exactly 3.5 inches long. Let's go up 7 this way, 7, enter. And again, I'm just typing that in. I drag the direction I want to go, and I type my number. Let's go 5.678 inches. And there it is. It's exactly 5.678. Probably the easiest way to draw. The problem is if Ortho is not turned on, and I'm drawing at some crazy angle, I'm not really specifying what the angle is. If I want to go 10 inches that way, that line is exactly 10 inches long, but I don't know what angle it went at. So this is where we have to introduce you to something called a coordinate system. There are 3 coordinate systems in CAD. There are 3 ways to type in a coordinate. So I'm going to pick my text command, and I'm going to make a nice little text window here. And I'm going to type in what those 3 coordinate systems are for you. The first one is called absolute coordinate systems. I'm going to do this in all caps, because hey, we always use caps in drawing. So there's absolute coordinate system. And what an absolute coordinate system is, all you're doing is you're just specifying an x, comma, y. Because you're doing a grid, you're doing a graph, and you're working in positive space. And you're going to say this line's going to go over 3 inches and up 4 or whatever. It's an absolute coordinate system. You're never really going to use absolute coordinate systems because it's very hard to remember where you're going in relationship to the point you're coming from. So you're going to use one of these other 2 coordinate systems more often. And the next one's called relative. So relative coordinate systems, what you're basically doing is adding an @ symbol before the x, comma, y number. And what that basically means is the @ symbol saying, alright, I have a start point. I'm going to consider that start point my 0, 0 point. And I'm going to go to a direction, an x and a y coordinate from that point. And I'll give you an example here in a few minutes. The other coordinate system that you use more than anything is called polar. And what polar coordinates, excuse my typing, you're still going to use the @ symbol, but instead of an x, comma, y, you're going to type in the length of the line, and then you're going to use the less than symbol, which is already on the same key as comma, the one you've been using. And you're going to type in the degree angle. And that is the most common way to type something in CAD. So you're going to use an @ a length, the less than symbol, and type in a degree angle. So let me give you an example of these. if I want it to work in polar coordinates, I have to know where the 0, 0 point is on my screen. I'm not even going to mess with polar or absolute coordinates. Let's go to relative. So let's say I start a line right here, and I want to go over 2 inches and up 3 inches from that point. Well, what I would do is I would just start to type at, and as you type, things automatically start showing up for you. At, I'm going to go 2 inches over, comma, 3 inches up, enter. So that went 2 inches over from this point and 3 inches up from that point. Very nice way to go with things. Okay, works out great. So if I wanted to go exactly 3 inches over to the right, I would just type in at 3, 0, because I'm not going up or down, so my y coordinate is 0. And there would be a line exactly 3 inches long going over to the right. So that's how relative coordinates work. Relative coordinates are good as, let's say I want to make a rectangle that's exactly 4 inches by 4 inches. Well, instead of drawing a line, here's a rectangle tool. If I pick that rectangle and I just pick any point on the screen, and there's the start of my rectangle. Let's say I want this to be exactly 5 inches by 5 inches. So I want to go over 5 and up to 5 for that other corner. So I would just type at 5, 5, enter. And there's an exact 5 inch by 5 inch rectangle. Gives me everything I need. Let's talk about polar coordinates, because you use these a lot. And what you do with polar coordinates is you're actually typing the length of the line and saying what direction do I want to go. In CAD, I'm going to use this little compass rose up here in the corner. East is always considered 0 degrees. Up is always 90. West is always considered 180 degrees. South would be 270 degrees. And back to 360. So you measure in a counterclockwise direction with 0 starting on the right hand side. So let's start a line. Let's say I want this line to be 3 inches long going up at a 45 degree angle. So I would type in at 3. I'm going to hit the less than symbol, shift comma key, and I'm going to type 45. Enter. That line just went up 3 inches at a 45 degree angle. Let's say I want a line to come from this point straight down 270 degrees. At, let's make it 4 inches long. The shift comma key, sometimes I'll just call it angle, at 4 angle 270. Enter, and now it just went straight down, which is 270 degrees down. Let's say I want to go up this way at a 60 degree angle now. So I'm going to go at, let's say 5.6 inches, angle 60. Enter. And now I just drew a line at a 60 degree angle. So I just gave you a bunch of ways to work with that coordinate system. Something good to remember. But you know what? There's a bunch of modify commands on here that make life a lot easier. And I'm going to make sure that Ortho is turned on right now. Ortho is on. And let's just say I want to draw 2 lines right now. I didn't even measure them. I don't even care how long they are. Let's say I want to copy this line over exactly 3 inches. Okay, that would be what we call an offset command. It's a modify command. So if I look around, I have to find the offset command, and right there it is. Kind of, somebody explained it looks like a little coat hanger. Okay, basically you make a copy of something a specified distance away. So I'm going to pick the offset command. And the first thing it asks me down here is specify your offset distance. Well, I want to copy this line over 3 inches, so I type 3 and enter. And now it says select object to offset. And now it says pick a side to offset. If I click anywhere to the right of that line, it'll keep making 3-inch lines all day long to the right. If I pick on this bottom line, if I click above it, there's 3 inches up. If I go below it, there's 3 inches down. That works for everything. If I draw a circle and I go to my offset command, the nice thing about all these modify commands is they're always going to remember your last number you typed. If you don't want to change that number, just hit enter to accept it. And it'll be 3 inches again. Now if I click on the circle, click to the outside, I'm making copies of that circle 3 inches out all day long. Always a nice thing to work with. Now, let's say I want to trim some things up. Let's say I want to get rid of this piece of line right here to where it hits that edge of that circle. We're going to talk to you about the trim command next. Okay, so here's your trim command. Trim and extend are buried together. You can either trim something off or make it longer. We're going to pick trim. The first thing it does is it says select objects or all. Well, basically the first thing I want to do is I have to select my cutting edges. Where do I want the line to stop? So if this is the line I want to get rid of, that's not what I click on first. I want it to stop to where it hits this circle, so I'm going to pick that circle first. And now I'm going to say, alright, I'm done selecting cutting edges. I'm going to hit enter. And now it says select object to trim. Now if I click on that line, it now goes away. So again, the way that works is if I go to trim, I select my cutting edge. So let's say I want to get rid of this piece of line in the middle, but keep that little top piece and the piece below it. I'm going to pick the circle as my cutting edge. I hit enter, and now I click on the piece to get rid of. And there it goes. Now a lot of times there is an easier way to use trim and extend and not pick cutting edges. If I pick trim, I'm just going to hit spacebar. Spacebar on my keyboard makes everything be a cutting edge, which means everything I click on is just automatically going to trim till it hits something else. So you can go through and you can trim off little chunks all over the place all day long, and it'll just stop when it hits something. Okay, so see there, I'm getting rid of this, and it's just getting rid of everything from where I'm clicking. Okay, so trim and extend work the same way. If I change this to extend, I hit spacebar to make everything be an extending line. If I click on this, it'll just go till it runs into something. If I click on it again, it'll go till it hits the next thing. If I click on it again, it went all the way over to hit the border. Okay, so extend just makes things go till they run into something again. So they're very useful commands. In fact, you can draw most things by using trim, offset, and extend. Those are just some of the basics. There are many other things to use. Feel free to experiment with this. There will be more specific drawing examples as we go through our CAD unit.